Hi everyone, welcome back. In this lecture, we will see how to use ChatGPT to quickly generate the code for REST API documentation using Swagger or Open API. Well, documenting REST API is very important in real-world applications. And in this lecture, I'm going to show you how you can use ChatGPT to quickly generate the code for REST API documentation in Spring Boot application using Swagger or Open API. So here is the generic prompt that we can use to ask ChatGPT to generate the code for REST API documentation. So let us quickly go through this prompt, and then later we will use this prompt to ask ChatGPT to generate the code. So here is a prompt: act as a senior Java backend developer and API documentation expert. So we are assigning these roles to the ChatGPT so that ChatGPT can generate the code as per our requirement. And here also I have mentioned like API documentation expert because ChatGPT can act as a API documentation expert to follow the API documentation best practices. Alright, next I want to generate Swagger or OpenAPI documentation for existing Spring Boot application using Spring Doc OpenAPI. So here Swagger or OpenAPI is a specification and Spring Doc OpenAPI is the implementation of this OpenAPI specification. Next, here is a project setup, and ChatGPT have to refer this project setup and generate the code accordingly. Our project has an entity, so we can give any entity name over here, and then our project has the REST controller and then the base URL. Next, our controller has these crude REST APIs, and ChatGPT have to generate the code that documents all these REST APIs. Next, here are our requirements. We are telling ChatGPT to use this library, and then we are telling ChatGPT to add the dependency, that is Spring Doc OpenAPI starter LVMC UI dependency, to the Maven project, and then annotate a controller class with these annotations and provide the metadata and generate the annotations for all these methods, request and response examples. And here is the additional expectations like annotate the entity class or a DTO class with add schema annotation. So we are telling ChatGPT not only generate the code for REST API documentation, also generate the code to document the entity class or DTO class by using add schema annotation, and annotate a controller methods with full API OpenAPI metadata, and then make the Swagger UI available at this URL. Next, automatically expose this endpoint so that we can see the response in a JSON format. So these are our additional expectations. Alright, now let us go ahead and customize this prompt, and we will use this prompt in the ChatGPT. Let us copy this prompt and go to the editor and paste it, and let us replace the placeholders. So here we have entity name. We can give any entity name over here as per your project requirement. So here I am going to give the entity name as customer. Replace the entity name with this customer entity, and then here we have entity name plural. So let us replace this placeholder as well. Let us give the entity name plural as customers, all in small letters, and then click on replace all. That's it. We have only two placeholders. Now we are good to use this prompt. Let us copy this prompt, go to the pre version of ChatGPT over here, click on the new chat, paste this prompt, click on submit button. Let us wait for the response of the ChatGPT. And there we go. You can see the response of the ChatGPT over here. So ChatGPT response, you can see, I will act as a senior Java backend developer and give you the complete copy pastable setup for documenting your existing customer controller REST API using this library. This is awesome. So whatever the instructions we have mentioned in the prompt, ChatGPT is following over here. You can see Maven dependency, customer DTO, error response, and the Swagger related annotations. Okay, and here you can see you can follow these steps. First, you need to add this dependency to your pom.xml file, that is Spring Doc OpenAPI starter LVMC UI, and make sure that you use the latest version of this dependency. So in order to see the latest version of this dependency, what you can do is you can go to the browser, in a new tab just type this dependency and then Maven, hit enter and go to this Maven repository And here you can find the latest version of this dependency. In this case, you can see the latest version 2.8.13. So this is the stable. This M1 is still in a development, so don't use it. Use 2.8.13 and just copy and paste in your pom.xml file. That's it. Next, go to the ChatGPT. Next step, application.properties. Make UI available at this URL. So just copy paste this property in your application.properties file. Next, DTOs. So here you can see the customer DTO and error response DTO. And ChatGPT has added add schema annotation. So ChatGPT generated the code to document the DTO classes as well. Okay. Next, error response as well. And you can notice the code over here. ChatGPT is using record class to create the DTO classes. So this is the best practice. Don't use the Pojo class or the Lambo connotations. Just use the Java record so that we can reduce the boilerplate code. Next, scroll down and here you can see optional OpenAPI global configuration. So you can create OpenAPI config class and you can copy paste this code and you can customize the documentation as per your requirement. You can give the document title over here and then version and then description of the document and then contact details as per your requirement. Next, annotated customer controller. So you can see customer controller has the customer related REST API and each REST API is annotated with Swagger annotations like operation and API response. So these annotations we use to add the metadata. So whenever we see the REST API documentation in the browser, then we will see all these details in the web page. Next, scroll down and here you can see what you will see in the Swagger UI. So you can use this URL to see the REST API documentation in the JSON format and you can use this URL to see the REST API documentation in the web browser. Quick checklist to get everything working. You can just read this checklist and you can follow accordingly. And notice here we have added customer as an entity name in the prompt. That's why ChatGPT has generated the code for this customer controller and added the REST API documentation related code for all the REST APIs which are related to customer. But let us say you have a different controller in your project. Let us say you are working in an e-commerce project and you have a product controller and you want the REST API documentation for your product controller. Then what we can do is we can paste product controller code in the chat and we can tell ChatGPT to add the REST API documentation related code for this product controller. For example, here we have a product controller and these are the REST APIs related to product controller. Now I will tell ChatGPT to add the REST API documentation related code for this product controller. So let me copy this and then go to the ChatGPT chat and here just paste this code and at the beginning we just add the prompt like add REST API documentation to below product controller using Swagger or OpenAPI and Spring Doc OpenAPI library, and then submit the prompt and let us see how ChatGPT generates the code. You can see the ChatGPT response. Excellent. You already have a clean REST controller. Let us enhance it with Swagger documentation using Spring Doc OpenAPI library. Awesome. And you can see the steps over here. First, you need to add this dependency to the pom.xml of your project. Next step, annotate DTOs. So optional but recommended. If you have product request and product entities or DTOs, annotate them like this for better schema generation. So if you have a product request and product classes, then make sure to use add schema annotation and add the description so that whenever you see the REST API documentation in the browser, you can see all the details of these DTOs and entities as well. Next, annotate the product controller. So here ChatGPT has added the Swagger annotations to all the REST APIs. So you can go ahead and copy this controller code in your project And if you want to customize anything in the metadata, you can customize it accordingly. For example, you can give summary as per your requirement. By default, the ChatGPT has added get all products, next description, next API response. Okay, perfect. Well, if you write this documentation related logic, then it will take a lot of time. So instead of that, what you can do is you can just ask ChatGPT, like just paste your controller and then ask ChatGPT like generate the REST API document related code for this particular controller. So ChatGPT will generate the code in a minute and then you can use that code in your project. Okay, it's basically very simple and it is time saving job. So make sure to use the AI tools to boost your productivity and speed up the work. Okay, now we have seen how to use pre-version of ChatGPT to generate the code for HTTP documentation. Next, let us see how to use this prompt with paid version of ChatGPT. So let me copy this prompt and go to the paid version of ChatGPT, and here click on the new chat and then paste this prompt, submit the prompt. Just wait for the response of the ChatGPT over here. Well, look at the response of the ChatGPT over here. Step-by-step process like Maven setup. So add this Spring Doc OpenAPI Starter WebMVC UI dependency to your project, and then make sure to use version as a property here in a property section. So this is a best practice. And then this library basically exposes all these URLs so that you can access accordingly. Optional Spring Doc configuration. So you can see here it is using annotation based configuration over here. So you can use open API definition annotation to configure the metadata. I mean the information about the documentation, like the title of the documentation, version, description, contact, license, server, tags, etc. So either you can use the Java based configuration or the annotation based configuration. And then details with add schema annotation. And then annotated controller, customer controller, it has all the REST APIs. And ChatGPT has added all the Swagger annotations to document the REST APIs. Scroll down and here you can see optional application properties file. You can add these configuration to the application.properties file. Documenting common errors globally, service interface. Well, ChatGPT, I mean the paid version of ChatGPT will basically add more information, so you can go through it and you can use it as per your requirement. So this is how we can use this generic prompt to tell ChatGPT to generate the REST API documentation for your Spring Boot REST API application. Okay, great. I will see you in the next lecture.